Imagine this: fierce warriors, epic sagas, and ships cutting through icy waters. That's the Viking Age. But how did these legendary people survive the brutal Scandinavian winters? The answer isn't just in their courage, but in their homes. Today, we're stepping inside the Viking Longhouse, a marvel of engineering designed for one primary purpose: survival. Forget the horned helmets. The real genius of the Vikings was their architecture. The Longhouse was the heart of Viking society, a single, massive building that housed not just one family, but an entire extended clan, their livestock, and their winter provisions. It was a home, a barn, and a fortress all rolled into one. So, how did they build these incredible structures to withstand months of snow and freezing temperatures? Let's start with the foundation. Vikings didn't dig deep foundations like we do today. Instead, they often laid a base of stones directly on the ground. Upon this, they erected the skeleton of the house, a series of massive wooden posts, usually made from oak or pine. These posts supported the entire roof structure, which was the most critical part of the design. You can think of it like an A-frame, with pairs of posts connected by a sturdy crossbeam. This simple, strong design was essential for bearing the heavy weight of the roof, especially when it was piled high with snow. The walls themselves were often made of wattle and doba, a lattice of woven branches, or wattle, packed with a mixture of clay, soil, sand, and animal dung known as dobe. This might not sound very glamorous, but it was an incredibly effective insulator. Once dried, the daub walls became hard and surprisingly weatherproof. In some areas, they used stacked turf or timber planks instead. The key was using whatever materials were locally abundant. The walls were also cleverly curved, bowing outward slightly. This wasn't a design flaw, it was intentional. This curvature added structural strength, helping the Longhouse resist the powerful winds that swept across the Nordic landscapes. Now, let's talk about the roof. The iconic Longhouse roof was long and sloped steeply. This steep angle wasn't just for looks. It was a practical solution to prevent heavy snow from accumulating and causing a collapse. Snow would simply slide off. The roofing material itself was often layers of birch bark, which is naturally waterproof, topped with a thick layer of sod or turf. This green roof provided fantastic insulation. In the summer, the grass would grow, creating a living roof that helped keep the house cool. In the winter, the thick layer of earth and snow acted like a heavy blanket, trapping precious heat inside. So, you have this massive, well-insulated structure. But how did they heat it? The answer lies in the heart of the Longhouse. The central hearth. A long, rectangular fire pit ran down the middle of the main living area. This fire was kept burning day and night throughout the winter. It was the source of heat, light, and was used for all the cooking. But wait. A constant fire inside a wooden house with a sod roof. How did they manage the smoke? This is another stroke of Viking genius. There were no chimneys. Instead, smoke would rise and collect high up in the rafters before slowly filtering out through small, adjustable smoke holes in the roof. This might sound incredibly smoky, and it was, but it served a purpose. The smoke cured the meats and fish that were hung from the rafters, preserving food for the long winter months. The soot that coated the inside of the roof also acted as a wood preservative, protecting the timbers from rot and insects. Life inside was hazy, but it was warm and their food was safe. The layout of the Longhouse was also designed for thermal efficiency. These buildings were typically long and narrow, usually between 15 and 75 meters long. The interior was divided into two main sections. One end was the living quarters for the people, and the other end was a byre, or barn, for the livestock. There was often just a simple wooden partition separating the two areas. This wasn't because Vikings liked living with cows. The body heat from the animals generated a significant amount of warmth, which helped heat the entire building. The animals were a living, breathing furnace, a vital part of the home's heating system. It was a symbiotic relationship. The animals were sheltered from the harsh winter, and in return they helped keep their human owners warm. Life inside was communal. Along the inner walls of the living area were raised wooden platforms. These were the social hubs of the house. During the day, people sat on them to eat, work on crafts like weaving or carving, and tell stories. At night, They would unroll their bedding, and these platforms became their beds. The warmest spots, closest to the central fire, were reserved for the head of the household and esteemed guests. The further you were from the fire, the lower your status. The layout of the longhouse reflected the social hierarchy of the clan. There were very few windows, and those that existed were just small openings that could be covered with translucent animal hide or wooden shutters. This lack of windows minimized heat loss, keeping the precious warmth from the central hearth trapped inside. The main entrances were at either end of the longhouse, and often featured a small, porch-like entryway. This created an airlock, a buffer zone that prevented icy drafts from blasting directly into the main living space every time someone opened the door. Every single aspect of the longhouse, from its curved walls and green roof to its central hearth and shared living space with animals, was a calculated response to the environment. It was a self-sufficient ecosystem designed to get an entire community through the darkest, coldest months of the year. The fire provided heat, light, and a means to cook. The smoke preserved their food. The animals provided extra warmth. The thick, insulated walls and roof kept the cold out. When we look at the ruins of these longhouses today, we see more than just old foundations. We see a blueprint for survival. We see the ingenuity and resourcefulness of a people who didn't just endure their harsh environment, but mastered it. The Viking longhouse wasn't just a place to live. It was a life support system, a testament to human resilience, and a masterpiece of climate-adaptive architecture, built 1,000 years ago. It is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most effective solutions are the ones that work in harmony with nature, not against it. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey back to the Viking Age interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what other aspects of Viking life you'd like to explore next. See you in the next video. Ever feel that winter chill creeping in? Not just through the window panes, but into your wallet too. It's a universal feeling. The moment the temperature drops, we start thinking about warmth, comfort, and, let's be honest, the cost of it all. But have you ever stopped to think about what that really means? The price of warmth isn't just about the numbers on your heating bill. It's a massive, intricate system that affects everything from global politics to your favorite cozy sweater. Today, we're going to peel back the layers of the winter economy, from the personal to the planetary, and uncover the fascinating story of how we stay warm. So, let's start with that number on your utility bill. For millions of people, this is the most direct and often most stressful part of the price of warmth. In the United States, the average household can spend over $1,000 just on heating during a single winter. In colder parts of Europe, that number can be even higher. And these are just averages. A sudden cold snap, an older, less insulated home, or a spike in energy prices can send these costs soaring. Where does this money go? It's a complex journey. If you use natural gas, your payment travels from your local utility company back through a massive network of pipelines to the companies that extract the gas from the ground. If you use electricity, it might be a mix of sources: gas, coal, nuclear, or renewables like wind and solar. Each of these has its own supply chain, its own market dynamics, and its own set of geopolitical factors. Think about the global impact. A political conflict thousands of miles away can affect the supply of natural gas, causing prices to spike in your hometown. A trade agreement can change the cost of solar panels, making renewable energy more or less affordable. It's a giant, interconnected web. The price you pay to keep your living room comfortable is tied to decisions made in corporate boardrooms and government halls across the world. It's a powerful reminder that our daily lives are deeply connected to global events. But let's bring it back home, to a more personal level. The price of warmth isn't just about bills. It's about the choices we make every day. This is what I call the personal layer of staying warm. It's a story told in fabric and personal habits. Think about your winter wardrobe. That down jacket, that wool sweater, those thermal socks. Each of these items is a product of the winter economy. The global textile industry gears up every year for the winter season, producing billions of dollars worth of cold weather clothing. You've got high-tech synthetic fabrics developed in labs, designed to trap heat and wick away moisture. Then you have natural fibers like wool and cashmere, which have been keeping us warm for centuries. The journey of a single wool sweater could start with a sheep on a farm in New Zealand, travel to a factory in Asia for processing and knitting, and finally end up in a store near you. And it goes beyond just what we wear. It's in the small rituals we adopt. It's the battle over the thermostat in a shared house. It's the decision to put on another layer instead of turning up the heat. It's choosing a hearty stew for dinner instead of a cold salad. It's the simple pleasure of wrapping your hands around a hot mug of tea or coffee. These are all microeconomic decisions we make constantly. We are all active participants in our own personal quest for warmth, balancing comfort with cost. We invest in thicker curtains, draft stoppers for our doors, and maybe even a heated blanket. Each of these is a small purchase, a tiny piece of a much larger economic puzzle. Now, let's zoom out again and look at the big picture. This is where it gets really fascinating. The need to stay warm doesn't just create bills and clothing industries. It fuels a massive, seasonal economic engine we can call the winter economy. This isn't just one industry. It's a whole ecosystem of businesses that thrive when the temperature drops. First up, the obvious ones, the energy sector. But think beyond that. Consider the thousands of technicians who install and repair furnaces and heating systems. Their busiest season is, you guessed it, the fall and winter. Think about the companies that produce insulation, high-efficiency windows, and other home weatherproofing materials. Their entire business model is built around our desire to trap heat and lower our energy bills. Then, there's the transportation sector. The production and distribution of road salt is a huge industry in colder climates. Municipalities spend millions every year to keep roads safe and clear of ice. This creates jobs for truck drivers, city workers, and the miners who extract the salt. And what about snow removal? From the guy with a plow on his pickup truck, earning extra cash to large-scale commercial operations, clearing mall, parking lots. It's a seasonal industry that employs countless people. And we can't forget the retail and hospitality sectors. The entire holiday season, from Black Friday to New Year's, is a massive driver of the winter economy. People buy gifts, decorations, and festive food. But even beyond the holidays, winter drives specific consumer behaviors. Sales of hot chocolate, soup, and other comfort foods skyrocket. The publishing industry sees a bump in book sales as people look for cozy indoor activities. And what about escaping the cold? The travel industry has a whole segment dedicated to winter sun destinations. Airlines, hotels, and resorts in warmer climates like the Caribbean or Southeast Asia see their peak season during the Northern Hemisphere's winter. People are literally paying to import warmth by traveling to it. At the same time, the ski industry creates its own economic hubs in mountain towns, supporting everything from ski lift operators to hotels and restaurants. So, when you turn up your thermostat or pull on a warm sweater, you're not just making a simple choice. You're participating in a complex, global economic system. It is a system that links a farmer in a remote village to a stock trader on Wall Street. A system that influences politics, drives innovation, and shapes our daily habits. The price of warmth is multifaceted. It's the number on your energy bill, yes, but it's also the cost of your jacket, the price of your hot chocolate, and the economic activity that hums along just beneath the surface of the season. Understanding this massive, interconnected economy gives us a whole new appreciation for the simple, profound act of staying warm. It's a fundamental human need that has built industries, shaped cultures, and continues to drive a significant portion of our world's economy. So next time you feel that winter chill, take a moment to think about the incredible journey of the warmth that surrounds you. It's a story of economics, technology, and human ingenuity. Thanks for watching. And if you found this interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden economics of everyday life. Stay warm out there. To preserve fish, you need to dry it slowly, at temperatures just above freezing. If it's too warm, the fish spoils. Too cold, and the drying process grinds to a halt. For the Vikings, the coastal climate of Norway, especially around the Lofoten Islands, offered a perfect natural factory, with winter temperatures hovering right around 0 degrees Celsius. This perfect climate allowed them to create. They transformed a seasonal bantita, massive winter cod migration, into a food source that could be stored, transported, and traded all year long. Stockfish became a critical safety net. When crops failed, as they often did, stockfish was there to sustain the population. The importance of this simple dried fish is best seen where it was absent. The Norse colony in Greenland founded by Eric the Red around 985 AD, eventually collapsed. Why? Modern analysis points to their fragile food system. Growing barley was nearly impossible in Greenland's short season, and making stockfish on a large scale was much harder because winter sea ice often blocked access to the fishing grounds. The Greenlanders adapted by hunting migratory harp seals, but relying on a single, unpredictable resource was a fatal mistake. When the seals changed their migration patterns, or a few hunts failed in a row, the colony had no buffer. There was no stored surplus to fall back on. The Longhouse provided shelter, and stockfish provided fuel. Together, they were the backbone of Viking survival. But the system wasn't complete. One more element, invisible yet essential, held it all together. The long, dark winter months in a Viking longhouse were far from a time of rest. Inside those turf walls, the longhouse transformed into a factory, converting resources, warmth, and labor into the tools of survival. Archaeological digs consistently find huge numbers of spindle whorls and loom weights. Spindle whorls are small, weighted discs. They keep a spindle spinning to turn wool or flax into thread. Loom weights are clay or stone objects that hold the vertical threads, or warp, taught on the type of loom used throughout the Viking Age. The placement of these artifacts isn't random. They are clustered in key work areas, usually near the central hearth, where families could make the most of the precious, flickering firelight. Now, let's picture this scene. The longhouse interior is almost completely dark. There are no windows. The only light comes from the long, central fire pit. Its flames casting more shadows than light, flickering across the walls. Thick layers of smoke drift lazily towards the openings in the roof. Women gather on the side benches, as close to the fire as the smoke and heat will allow. Their hands move with a practiced, steady rhythm. Spindles twist and turn, drawing out fibers. Shuttles pass back and forth through the threads of the loom. The sharp clack of the beater pressing the new thread into place punctuates the crackle of the fire and the low, steady breathing of livestock huddled in the shadows. This wasn't just a hobby. This was industrial-scale production, absolutely vital for the community's survival. In fact, this work was so central that many archaeologists argue it shaped the very fabric of the Viking Age, both literally and economically. What's really exciting is the sheer variety of fibers and fabrics found at Viking sites. It's not just prepared bundles of plant fiber, but also different kinds of fabrics made from them. One example is a fabric made using a technique called twining, which you might think of more for basket making. People used these techniques in incredibly creative ways to make everything from tough, practical items to delicate, fine-looking objects. These textiles provided everything needed to survive. They were the woolen layers worn between the skin and the deadly cold. But their importance went far beyond just clothing. They were used to produce the massive sails that powered Viking ships across the ocean. A single large sail required an immense amount of labor at thousands of hours spent spinning, weaving, and sewing wool, strong enough to withstand fierce Atlantic storms. All this work happened in the winter, when families were confined together. The body heat from the livestock made the longhouse habitable, and with little else to do, they labored and waited for spring. But winter work was more than just an economic necessity. This forced confinement also served a crucial social purpose. It forged and strengthened the bonds within the family and the wider community. Communal meals around the fire reinforced the household's identity. Games, like the board game Hnefatafl, brought shared challenges and entertainment. Music, poetry, and above all, storytelling, wove the threads of culture and memory together. The great Icelandic sagas, though not written down until centuries later, originated in this oral tradition. Night after night, families gathered as skilled storytellers recited genealogies, legal precedents, myths about the gods, and epitaphes of heroes. This was far more than just entertainment. The Viking oral tradition was a form of social infrastructure. It was a system for preserving critical knowledge and memory and passing it down through generations. Genealogies protected legal claims to land. Sagas encoded social norms and strategies for resolving conflict. Myths reinforced a shared identity and values, binding the community together through time. The endless winter darkness was never an idle time. It was the season for essential work, the time when the entire household sat close together listening to a single voice for hours on end, night after night, weaving together labor, learning, and memory into the very fabric of survival. The Longhouse didn't just protect the body, it safeguarded the culture. Survival in the brutal North Atlantic winters was never about one person's endurance. It was about systems thinking, coordinated integration of shelter, heat, food, labor, and social organization. The Longhouse itself was an engineered ecosystem, designed to answer one brutal question. How do you survive when 6 months of abundance must sustain you through 6 months of scarcity? The Viking solution wove everything together: architecture, biology, economics, and social structure into a single, resilient system where each part supported the others. The 2-meter-thick turf walls acted like a passive thermal battery, absorbing the sun's heat by day and slowly releasing it through the long night. A hybrid heating system paired the central fire with a living furnace of livestock, generating tens of thousands of watts of heat around the clock. High-efficiency personal insulation, like down-filled clothing, then trapped individual body heat within this passively warmed space, completing the system. A preserved food economy, anchored by the stockfish industry, turned seasonal abundance into year-round security. And the social structures, the textile work, the storytelling, the shared meals forged the bonds that held the household together when the isolating darkness pressed in from all sides. The Vikings didn't just endure because of one clever trick. They survived because they understood that survival is never about a single element. It's about how every component works together in concert. Any society interacts with the world not through some direct, fundamental understanding of nature, but through a nested series of perceptions and culturally developed solutions to the problems they face in their environment. The warmth that kept the Vikings alive came from every part of their system. It came from turf walls releasing yesterday's stored heat, from cattle breathing steadily in the dark, from down feathers trapping microscopic pockets of warm air, from dried fish waiting in storage, and from stories shared by the fire that reminded everyone why survival mattered. They succeeded by treating winter not as something to be suffered, but as an engineering problem to be solved. And they built that solution with such precision that their families survived for generations, in conditions that should have been impossible. The smoke may have scorched their lungs, the darkness weighed on their spirits, and the cold was always waiting just beyond the walls. But the system held, and the Vikings survived. If this kind of survival engineering fascinates you, then consider how another group of warriors faced similar conditions, with even fewer resources. Our next video, on how World War II soldiers survived in frozen foxholes without proper gear, reveals improvised solutions that echo these very same principles. It's a different era, with different technology, but the same fundamental physics of staying alive when everything is trying to kill you. Check it out. Paro siap